Welcome CSC103 to exercise 6B, Apple-Pear, using vector art, and this time we're using Figma. We used to use Gravity in the past, but we're using Figma, so you did your first exercise with Figma. This is a finished product that I'm looking at right now. There's an apple and a pear, and it's all created by vector art, and we're going to edit the vector paths and apply gradients. So it's not that difficult. Some of it's a little tricky. You don't have to put them together in the end. We're actually going to have two pages. So you're going to have one page that'll have the apple, and we're actually going to make a 3-color gradient if you like. If you don't, it's okay. If you don't put the stem on there, it's okay. On page 2, we're going to do a pear. And I ended up grouping them and then kind of putting them together so we have a nice little composition at the end. But if you don't, that's okay. If you just have one on each page, that's fine too. So this is kind of a finished product. So I just wanted to show you that first so you know what we're doing. We're just kind of making a shape. We're going to edit the anchor points and make it a little more pear-shaped, a little more apple-shaped, and add a leaf on there, add a stem possibly, add a nice little gradient with a highlight in the upper left and a shadow in the bottom left. Put a little shadow on the leaf to make it a little more realistic, and that's about it. So we're going to use some Boolean operations, which means we can take a bite out of the apple and we can actually combine two shapes to make the pear. So those are just not just grouping, but they actually become one path. So I'll go over that. So this is the sample. I'm going to go back to my files, and this is where you would go. And I have my sample here, so I'm going to make a new one. So this is what you're going to do now. So you're going to start off and put new design file once you log into your Figma. When you get here, you can give it a name right away. Double click on Untitled and call it 6B-Apple-Pear. That's all you got to do. You can put another dash or you can put it all together. It doesn't matter. Apple-Pear. And hit enter. So now it's named and it'll say in drafts. And just like the other exercise, what you have to do is put something on the background. The background's black. We're going to put like a page on there. So we're not going to use the rectangle. We're going to go to a frame and use this tool that says add frame and click on it. And we'll have our choices of frames. And this is already open from last time, paper. But if it's not, you can open it up and choose letter. And that's it. And then I like to go lock it so we don't accidentally click on it. So there's our frame that we're going to be working on top of. And we'll start off like our other one, like our heart one. For the apple, we're just going to make an ellipse, which is a circle. And just make a nice circle, which is around 400 something, somewhere around there. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be a perfect circle, but if you wanted a perfect circle, hold shift while you draw it. So I'm going to do it somewhere around 400 pixels. And it could be in the center. It doesn't have to be exactly in the center, but somewhere like that. And if you want to make it red, just so it looks more like an apple, you can, or you could leave it gray until we color it later. And you could even call this ellipse, you could even call it apple shape if you want. That might be easier. It may not matter. So there's our apple shape. Now it doesn't look like an apple yet. Now remember, we're going to edit the anchor points. Those are the little connecting points on here. So to get in there, you can use this, click on here, or you could double click on it. So I'll click on this. And let's just look at the anchor points first. Those are the connecting points, the anchor points. And click on one and see what it says. It says no mirroring. Now if you remember, no mirroring means these work independently and they make like a corner point. So if you drag this up, it'll kind of go up like that. And that's okay, do that. And if you drag the other one up, do that. Now it doesn't look like an apple yet. And that's fine. Now if you go over to one of the side ones, click right on the point and it says no mirroring. And let's make sure it does mirror because we want it to be smooth on the side. We don't want any divots on the side. So make sure it says mirror angle and length on the side. And check this one too. Click on it. And that one does say mirror angle and length. So once it does say mirror angle and length, if you click on this point, we'll go back to this one, and I'm going to turn it kind of to like 1 o'clock. Move this to 1 o'clock. The bottom handle will go to like 7 o'clock. We'll do it like that so it comes out like a heart a little bit. And I'm going to pull this out just a little bit. And that looks good. You could pull this handle up. Now, I'm going to undo that because I'll mention why that did that. Now, before I do that, let's go over to this side and click on that and bring this handle out a little bit. Same thing, kind of mirror what we did on the other side. So now it's kind of like an apple shape. And sometimes it's hard to get on these points. And that's okay. It's a new program. It's not easy for me either. Down at the bottom, you could pull this down a little bit. And actually, this one says mirror angle and length. And if you change this to no mirroring, and then go back to it, and click on the point again, then you could pull the other one down, and it'll make like a little divot down there where the bottom of the apple would be. Now, really, it would be kind of more smoother going in, but that's fine like that. That looks like an apple shape. And if you had any issue with any of these, you could always convert back. Like if it said no mirror, like now it's saying mirror angle and length, and it's really not doing that. That's why when you grab it, it does that. So when it does that, just go back, click on it, and put on no mirroring. And then you should be able to pull up this side to do that. So no mirroring, they work independently, which actually doesn't make sense because they look like they're mirroring each other. But kind of like that, kind of like the heart shape, but not as much. So I'm going to pull this in a little bit and pull that in a little bit and out a little bit and out a little bit. And if you have trouble with these, just go back and convert it again. Look at this thing here. And that's about what we want. That's a good enough apple shape. Now, when you're done with it, hit done. So we're done editing these little points here. So I'll hit done. And I'll give it a color. I'll just make it red, darker red like that. Now, it can look like a cherry. That's why we like to put a leaf on it and put a bite out of it. That's actually why Apple put a bite in their apple so it didn't look like a cherry when they first did their logo. And if you want to do a gradient on here, you can change it from solid to radial. Now, I don't like what happens when you make it a radial. It always does the outside transparent and the inside the solid color. So I always switch these around, although there's probably a button that switches them, but I just manually switch them. And the inner color now is this transparent. Now this means it's transparent red. I'm going to make it like a yellow. So I'm going to click on yellow and then make it not transparent. Make it more of a solid yellow. Make it a little lighter. I'll move this little dot up there. And then I'll grab this little middle dot on my gradient while I'm working on the gradient and kind of move it up here a little and move this one down here. Keep it a little more contrasty because I want most of the apple red. I just want a little highlight. I don't want it, you know, an orange apple. I want a red apple with a little bit of a highlight. I'll move that up there. And even if you want it lighter, you can make it lighter yellow. And one thing I mentioned on my sample is if you move this over a little and you click on the top of here, you could put another color here. And I'm just going to make like maybe a darker red. You could do like a dark green or something. Now, when you do that, now if you extend this, you could kind of make that like a little shadow. Now, if it's up here, it dominates. But if you move it all the way down here, it kind of becomes like a little bit of shadow here. And then you can move the red over again. So you kind of have like a little dark shadow down there, and you still have the highlight up here. So that can be a little tricky, but it certainly makes it look a little more realistic than just a flat shape. So that's our apple shape. When you're done messing with this stuff, if you ever put one here that you didn't want, you put something there and you're like, I didn't want that, just delete it. Just hit your delete key and it'll go away. As long as it's highlighted in blue. When it's highlighted in blue, that means it's selected. That means you can delete it. Or that also means you can edit it. So I'll close this up. Now I'll move it down just a little bit and I'll make a leaf. And I'll do this as easy as possible. I'm going to go here and make an ellipse, which is an oval, and then I'll zoom in. I'll use Command plus. If you're on Windows, use Control plus. Zoom in, and then I'll just scroll up a little bit so I see this very closely. You could also hold on your space bar and kind of move around like that. If you ever have a problem scrolling up to see something after you zoom in, hold on your space bar, you get this little grabber hand. And now what I'll do is I'll edit this again, and I'll click on this, and right now it's saying no mirroring, which means I could grab these handles and pull them in. Another thing you can also do is click on this thing, this bend tool. Now this is like a convert tool in Illustrator. It goes both ways. If you pull on the point, it'll make it smooth, and if you click on it, it'll suck in the handles. You see that little bar? Watch this. It'll suck in the handles, and then if you use the tool again and you grab on it, it makes it smooth. So I'm actually just going to click on the point and bring the handles in. And then get off of that tool. If you see this highlighted, go back to the arrow. And then I'll go down here and check what this point is. It says no mirroring. That means you could kind of bring this down a little and bring the other down a little. And that kind of looks like a leaf. And I'll make it green. I'll go green, and then I'll make it a little darker. And you can always use a gradient on here if you want to make it look a little bit lighter. I'll make it maybe lighter on the bottom. I'll go here to radial, and again, switch these around, move this over here, move that over there. And what I'll do is click on this and move this into the green a little bit all the way and make it a little lighter green, like that, maybe up here a little bit. And then I could kind of move this down a little and move this down so that the gradient's kind of at the bottom. We have kind of dark at the top, light at the bottom. And that's good. That's all you need. I'll hit X and I'll hit done. Now we could have done the gradient after we were done editing the anchor points. And if you want to rotate this, just go on a corner and kind of do something like this. And I'm just going to move it down. Now I'll zoom out a little so I can see it better and check the scale. Now I'll zoom in and I'll move down. That looks like a decent leaf size. And I'll kind of put it in place right about there. If you want to make it a little bit bigger, that's okay. You could squash it by going in the middle. You can make it bigger. If you wanted to put a little drop shadow on it, you can go to Effects and click on Drop Shadow, the settings here. And I think I tried it before. I think I did like 5, tab 5, tab 5, and that's probably good. I think I did it 50%, but 25% looks good there. You don't want a real strong shadow. Now, that's the apple pretty much. And if you want to put a stem, now this is optional because some people find this tricky, but if you go and make a rectangle, I'll just make a rectangle and I'll zoom into it. And again, if you try this and you find it tricky, just skip it. And I'll make it brown. Now, how do you make a brown color? There's no brown down here, there's no brown here. Go to orange and go to dark. There we go, brown. And then I'll go into this edit mode. Let me close this first. I'll go in this edit mode. Now, I'm going to go on this bend tool and I'm going to bend the middle line. And you could bend the right side or the left. I'll bend the left and just bring it out and then go to the other side and bring it in. Now, I have to go back to the bend tool because it did it like an angle that time, but let me bend it a little like that, pull some handles out. And then while it's on the bend tool, I'll just drag on the top and drag that out a little bit. That's kind of a stem, and I'll hit done. That's all you need to do. Make it a little bigger. Now there it is. It's called rectangle. If you want to double click on it and call it stem, that way you know. And this thing ellipse, I'll double click on that and I'll call it leaf. That way you'll know, because we're going to use the same leaf and stem for the pear. That way you don't have to do it twice. All right, so let me see. I'm out of here now, and the problem is this goes on top. Now, if you want to move this behind the leaf, you can just grab it and drag, and where you see that line, and now it goes behind the leaf. And you don't have to put it behind the apple, just behind the leaf is okay. And I'll zoom out, and that's it. That's fine, I guess. Even if you want to make the stem shorter, you could squash it down a little. That's fine. So that's the apple on page 1. Now let's go to page 2 and make a pear. Now if you want to stop here and take a break, that's fine.